It's another episode of the D.B.A.B. podcast with your boy, Kirton. And that's right, it's just me. I'm flying solo dolo um, tonight on the episode. So, all the listeners, I apologize in advance because it's just me you'll be hearing for the next, don't even know how long we're going to be talking for. Excuse me, how long I'm going to be talking for. So, this should be great because it's just me. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if this is gonna be a good thing, bad thing, whatever the case may be. But again, it's just me here on the episode tonight, hoping it's goodness for all y'all. The boys aren't here, unfortunately. Jack's out of the country on vacation. Cleet is out of town. Adam's busy, and it seems Cobbs is busy. He might hop on here in a little bit, but it's just me. But without further ado, is the DBAB podcast. What's up, everybody? It's Kirton. It's your boy, right? It's the DBAB podcast. Like I said, I am flying solo tonight. So we are going to see how this goes. Um, and we're going to have fun with it. Okay. I'm going to talk about a lot of things. I hope. Okay. We're going to talk about some NBA playoffs. We got game one of the NBA Finals tonight with the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat. Let's go, baby. We're going to talk about that series with the Celtics. Give a little preview, my honest opinion about the finals coming up. We also got some hockey. I feel sorry for all my Star fans out there. Shout out to the Garcias. It was rough to watch that game six. I feel for them. Um, a great season overall for the Stars, but it's hard to compete against teams that were able to go, if you will, and kind of cherry pick some of these guys when they were an expansion team. But uh, it is what it is, though. Unfortunately, but a great season overall for the Stars. So that's probably going to be it for my NHL talk. I know we'll talk a little bit about the Stanley Cup. I guess I give my 2 cents there, more of a prediction about how that series is going to turn out. We'll talk a little about MLB baseball, right? We'll talk about all that glorious there. Maybe even talk about some football, them, you know, the football, right? That the world plays. Talking about soccer for all you other people that don't know. So it's gonna be great. Hopefully, it's a great show. Like I said, I don't know for the umpteenth time, it's just me. So hopefully, you enjoy it. I'm gonna try to bring the juice. That's right. I'm gonna bring the juice because it's just 20%, 1/5. I got to carry the load 100%. Right? If the math adds up, perfect. If it doesn't, then I'm not a math major and I don't teach math. Okay. Um, but it's gonna be hard to do, right? It's gonna be hard to keep this thing going without all my boys here, right? Jack bringing the juice, Cleet bringing the roasting, Cobbs bringing Cobbs, Adam bringing all the gloriousness of Adam, right? But I'm gonna try to do my best. This is actually really exciting, to be honest, too, because I get to speak my mind. I don't have to worry about being interrupted by people like Cleet. That's right. Jack does not interrupt. That's my boy. Shout out Jack. Okay. Also, shout out our wonderful listeners, all of y'all. I don't know how many of you are there are. We love you all. Okay. We do. We truly appreciate you tuning in, listening to us five knuckleheads, right? Just talk about stuff and make fun of each other and all the above, right? We appreciate you. Shout out Hannah Garcia, right? Shout out all the coaches there in Terrell and everybody else who listens to our show, right? Appreciate you. Much love and respect, right? So, first things first, we're going to dive into the world of the NBA. Okay. And on the Western Conference, right? We had a sweep in the finals, right? We got the Nuggets 4 games over the Lakers. That was kind of a Debbie Downer, right? LBJ, Anthony Davis, right? You would like to see those guys at least kind of get a game or two in there, but the Nuggets were just too good, right? The Joker. Nobody could stop the Joker. AD couldn't stop the Joker, right? Um, and I know LeBron's 38. And he's still LeBron, but he's not the LeBron of old. Um, but I would have liked to have seen him be a little bit more dominating in that series. But again, the Nuggets are they're a damn good team with Joker and Murray and all those other guys, Porter and all of them. They're a tough team to beat, especially over the course of a series. Especially if you don't have nobody that can contain the Joker, then it's gonna be a long night. That dude is a triple double machine. So hopefully, good luck to the Heat trying to stop that. It'll be interesting to see how they game plan towards that for Game One tonight. Speaking of the Heat, right? The Eastern Conference champions, right? I'm proud to say that. Um, but it was a whew, that Eastern Conference Finals was surely for all my Heat fans out there. It was an emotional roller coaster, right? All postseason for the Heat. It's been a difficult journey from the play-in tournament where they lost the first one and had to win. The next one just to even be able to participate in the playoffs. Then they get matched up with the number one seed Milwaukee Bucks. Surprisingly, they beat them in 5 games. Right, I was kind of shocked by that. But you know, the Heat do have a really pretty solid team. They got some shooters with Duncan Robinson and Struess and those guys that can get hot from downtown. You have Jimmy Butler that when he turns it on, he's a stud. Bam's usually a really consistent contributor. Excuse me, I can't speak on both sides. So it was a great series. Shocked a lot of people, right? And then they got the Knicks. They took the Knicks out in 6. The Knicks are a solid group too with Randall and all them guys up there in New York. Did a great job of getting through that series, and then of course they come up against Boston, who on paper was probably the best team or one of the best teams in the NBA, let alone the Eastern Conference. Eastern Conference. And going into that series, Miami had a 3% chance of winning. Let that sink in. They had a 3% chance. Like they gave Boston a 97% chance of winning that series and going on to the finals. And for the first 3 games, the Heat made that look silly, right? By racing out to a 3-0 lead in the series and looking good. And Boston was all over the place. Game 3 was an absolute beatdown there in Miami, and everybody was feeling confident. I was feeling confident. I was hoping that they could get them in 4 and sweep it just like the Nuggets. It would have been the first time, I believe, in NBA history that both conference finals would have been swept. But that second half of Game 4 was ugly for the Heat. Boston got some momentum and took it and carried it over into Game 5 uh, back in Boston. Then, of course, we had Game 6 where Boston was in control most of it. Miami made a rally in the fourth, which they're pretty good at making rallies, especially when they're down by a certain amount of points. And they took the lead with 3 seconds left off 3 Jimmy Butler uh, free throws. I was actually driving in my truck, watching the game. Uh, Kids at home, don't do that. I did pull over to the side of the road to watch it, just to be safe, as I was going bouncing around some grad parties for some of my former students who just graduated, and it was great. I was pumping, I was excited. There was 3 seconds left, and of course we all know what happens next, right? Ball gets inbounded from White to I believe Smart. Smart jacks up a three. It misses. The rebound happens to fall to where White is as he's coming to crush the boards, and he tips it in right before the buzzer. The Celtics win literally the last second, right? It happens, right? And like Spo said, sometimes the ball bounces your way, sometimes it doesn't. And unfortunately for Miami that night, it didn't bounce their way. Like if the ball bounces off the rim any other way, Miami wins that and they win in 6, right? But it doesn't happen, right? So they go to Game 7, and I'll be honest with all my listeners, right? All of our listeners from the DBAB podcast, right? Is that um, I was not really feeling confident for Game 7. I wasn't. They were going back to Boston. They had the momentum. I'm sure they were pumped up. They won Game 6 in Miami. They'd won 3 in a row. They're chasing history as the first team ever to be able to come back from a 3-0 deficit to win a series. Previously, there's been 150 instances of this happening, and 0 times has that occurred to where a team has come back from 3-0 to win it in NBA. Um, and I really kind of felt like Boston had a really good shot at doing it. I didn't want it. Of course, as a Heat fan, I didn't want them to be on the wrong side of history, right? The Heat were also chasing some history of their own of being the first play-in team to make it, to being an AC team going, all that kind of stuff to the finals. And then Game 7 happens, watching it, and Miami just comes out. I know they kind of adjusted to a different type of defensive style. I think they went to a zone play, a 2-3 zone, and kind of made it a little bit difficult on Boston, and it worked. Right, Boston was cold from downtown, which is they're kind of like their go-to, if you will. When they get hot from downtown, they're I think it applies to anybody, but that makes them a dangerous team. They create turnovers, getting fast break points. That's what I think is their bread and butter. But the shots weren't falling. The shots were falling for Miami. Shout out Caleb Martin, who was balling. He was kind of my personal pick for MVP. It went to Butler, and not nothing to be ashamed about that. But Butler had a great series overall. He didn't really particularly play well, in my opinion. For I would say the second half of Game 4, definitely Game 5 and 6, he didn't play well, but he kind of brought it in Game 7. And Bam was terrible. I don't know what it was. I think I know Boston kind of switched some things around and kind of made his life difficult, but he was not the Bam that he could be. So hopefully he kind of rebounds for the finals tonight against the Nuggets. He does got a tough assignment to help try to slow down the Joker. But overall, the series, the Eastern Conference Finals was, was a good series. If you're a neutral, it was a good series. It made for good publicity and all that kind of stuff. I'm just glad that Miami was able to go to Boston, whoop that ass in front of those Celtics fans, be able to celebrate on their court. It's kind of a sweet revenge for what happened last year when they celebrated in Miami and whatnot. And Butler had a nice little prophecy from last year, and it came true this year. So that was nice. And going into Game 1 tonight, super excited. Um, a lot of people I'm sure are riding the Nuggets, and obviously they deserve that. It will be interesting. Miami's been counted out all playoffs. I mean, they've been counted out in all series, so it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. You know, if I had to give a prediction, obviously I'd probably, the numbers don't lie. I think the Nuggets win Game 1 tonight. They've had more rest. They'll be prepared. But it could be a game. If Miami shots are falling, if Butler steps up, if Bam steps up with their supporting cast of Martin and Vincent and those guys and Struz and Duncan and stuff, then they can make it a game. But if not, then it's probably going to be a long night for the Heat. And the Nuggets will take Game 1. Good news is that Tyler Hero might be back for this series, possibly Game 2 or 3. That'll be huge for the Heat to kind of help strengthen that team and get another scorer in there. But it's gonna be interesting series nonetheless. I still think Joker. I don't think there's gonna be anybody that the Heat have. They're gonna be able to stop that guy. I still think he's gonna do what he does. It's gonna be trying to limit the other guys around him, Murray, Porter, um, and those guys like that. Um, Making those guys a little bit more of a non-factor if the Heat are gonna be able to achieve success in this series. I don't think the Nuggets are gonna sweep them. I'm hoping it's not a 5-game series. I can see it going 6, and possibly even 7 if it somehow gets there. But I would say, and it hurts my heart to say this, but maybe they'll prove me wrong, like they've done everybody else. But I'm gonna probably say that the Nuggets win this in 6. Wouldn't be totally surprised to see them win it in 5. If it goes to Game 7, that'll be awesome. All right, but we'll see. But like I said, I think the Nuggets are in 6. But if Miami wins this series, obviously it's going to be awesome. There'll be pandemonium here in this household and in South Beach and for all the Heat fans out there. But we shall see, right? We'll see what Game 1's like and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait to watch it here in a little bit. And then, of course, next week we'll talk about. By that time, I think we'll be close to Game 3-ish, give or take, when we record next week with the boys. So we'll see how it's going. But like I said, um, I'm not trying to go for any bad takes here. I guess I'm gonna go with everybody else. But like I said, the Nuggets in 6. Uh, but obviously, I'll be rooting for my Heat to make it a series and try to come out with the dub and win that championship again. But we'll see. It's gonna be great, right? It's gonna be interesting to see how they approach it tonight and learn. And they're pretty good. They're a pretty solid, scrappy bunch. So we'll see. And of course, shout out to the Nuggets, right? They did a great job to reach their first final. So it's going to be interesting. Switching gears real quick, talk about NHL. Like I said, shout out to the Stars. I thought they had a great season. It was kind of hard for them. I'm not really a hockey guy, but kind of living vicariously through my buddies who are Star fans with Jack and Adam. Um, It was rough to watch them go down in Game 6 like they did. I think they lost 6-0 to the Golden Knights of Vegas. But I think it was a pretty good series overall. I know the Stars at certain points went 100%, but I know there's games that there were and they still got beat. But it's just there was a couple games where they just got blitzed from the beginning and never recovered uh, and whatnot. But like I said, great season overall. I think it's going to be a good Stanley Cup. Again, no, I don't know anything about hockey or really follow these teams much, but I know Florida's been on a run. So they got all of that state excited. You got two teams from Florida in the finals and whatnot, so they're excited. And of course, the Vegas Golden Knights are loaded. They got a great team as well, and should be a good series. Um, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see. I think that game goes. I think that series goes 6 or 7 games, right? And it's a toss up. You can flip a quarter or flip a coin, right, to see who can win that. Um, I don't. It's whoever your preference is. If you're a Stars fan and you hate Vegas, you're probably rooting for Florida and whatnot. So it's gonna be interesting to see. But if I'm gonna stick to Florida ties, right, all that kind of stuff, then I guess I'm gonna pick the Panthers to win. Um, I'm going to say Panthers win in 7. I think it's going to go 7. I think it's going to be entertaining Stanley Cup, and we shall see. I believe it starts. Game one is either Friday or Saturday, so something like that. And they're going to get rolling there, but should be good, right? And again, next week when the boys are back, we can talk a little bit more about that, whatnot. But anywho, again, should be great. Again, now we'll move on to the MLB, right? We'll talk about. Oh, shit, I don't even know where to start here. Yeah, I don't know. We'll just talk about the Yankees, right? That's my team. I don't know, man. The Yankees are the Yankees right now, man. I always feel they get on a little bit of a run, then they do something stupid, or they get guys always hurt. There's always somebody hurt. Good news today, they got Donaldson and Stanton back. Well, more excited for Stanton. Uh, but it's just been interesting. I know their starting pitching has not been 100%. Their top free agent acquisition and Rondon has been hurt. Hasn't even pitched once so far this year. So you know, I don't. It's just Cole, right, and Nestor and Severino going at it with help from others, and it's just in certain series they look good, other series they don't. I thought a couple weeks ago or whatever they played the Rays. I thought they battled pretty well against the Rays, who are the best team in baseball right now. The Rays are 40-18. They're pretty good. The Yankees are sitting third right now in the East, the AL East, 6 games behind the Rays, and 2 games behind Baltimore, who Baltimore is pretty good, um, whatnot. You know, and then looking at it right now, just looking at the standings, right? AL Central is always going to be. They don't really ever separate themselves. Maybe besides the Royals, who aren't very good. They're second worst team in the AL right now, but it's tightly contested there. The Twins are division leaders by 2 games over the Tigers, and a game and a half back of the Tigers as the Guardians. Excuse me. All right, and then of course in the AL West we got the Rangers. Let's go Rangers, right? Again, living vicariously with that team through Jack and Cobbs and Adam and all them who are Ranger fans. They have a 3-game lead over the Astros. That's Cleet's team. Uh, so that's a good little race there. The Rangers are 35-20, so 15 games over 500. Great season for them so far. They got some guys that are doing some great things. They got some great starting pitching um, and whatnot. So it's excited to see the Rangers be back and being good. Going over to the NL, the NL East. Atlanta leads that division 3 game by 3.5 games over the Mets, with the Phillies following at 4.5 games behind. The NL Central is just like the AL Central. They're all literally the bottom team, the Cubs, is 4.5 games back of the division leader of the Brewers, who are sitting at 29-27. So that division, you know, right now is still kind of wide open, if you will. It's going to be interesting to see who comes out of there. And then in the AL West, ooh, look at the Diamondbacks are tied for first with the Dodgers. They both sit at 34 and 23. 5.5 games back of them as uh, the Giants, and then man, like the Padres. I don't know what the Padres deal is. I know they go out. They got Tatis, they got Soto, and then they got Machado, who I think may be hurt. I haven't really looked into it too much, but for the talent they have, and then I don't know if their starting pitching is that good or if their bullpen or whatever the case may be, but they're 4 games under 500. They're 26-30, and unless something changes, I don't see them making the postseason or the playoffs. This year. So it's going to be interesting to see in baseball. Are the Rays going to be able to hold up all year with what they're doing? They're absolutely fantastic at home. They're 26-6 at home. They're 14-12 away. So that could be a bit concerning for them. But again, they're having a great season overall. They're just really solid ball club from head to toe. But it's going to be interesting to see how the season's going. Um, I, uh, I don't know. We're not even halfway yet, so we can't jump to conclusions too much, but still pretty solid, right? Kind of looking at some stats here, just to see if anything kind of jumps out to me. Uh, I always like to look at the home run leaders and stuff and see where people are. Right now, Pete Alonso of the Mets leads the major league, 20 home runs, and then right behind him is big Aaron Judge, 18. So he's actually kind of almost on pace for where he was at last year when he had his record-breaking AL uh, home run uh, season. So it's going to be interesting to see there. And then, of course, for the Garcia, their Cuzzo, right? He's the leader in RBIs right now for the league. He's got 49. So that's interesting to see there. Um, so shout out to Cuzzo for the Garcias, all that kind of stuff. Let's look at pitching real quick. I always like to go to ERAs and look there and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, so that's kind of an update on MLB, whatnot. So interesting there, right? If you're a baseball fan, it's exciting. I was kind of reading something the other day that was piqued my interest about the it was about the Padres and about their regional broadcast company, whoever they use or whatever, didn't make payments to them and stuff like that. So if you haven't read into it, I don't know the whole shebang, uh, but it's basically kind of about regional broadcast of these teams and games and companies and stuff like that, and how that's kind of taken a hit somewhat, and it's gonna be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. I know the MLB kind of wants to get everybody together and have a package similar to like the NFL and stuff like that, but it's kind of difficult because you got some teams like the Yankees and Red Sox and Dodgers, and there might be one or two others that have their own broadcasting companies, and they're making bank. So it's hard for them to kind of give up all that to go under one umbrella with MLB and kind of, I guess, make it more evenly revenue distributed amongst the clubs and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out and all that kind of stuff when it comes to broadcast and all that and whatnot. So it should be interesting and anything like that. But and then lastly here, because I'm not going to speak too much, since it's just me, right? And I'm sure y'all don't want to hear my voice for an hour and a half, right? So this might be the shortest episode ever of the DBAB podcast. And don't forget, right? I totally forgot it at the beginning to mention this, but remember, you can find the DBAB podcast anywhere podcasts can be found: Apple, Spotify, all the above. You can come find us, subscribe to us, listen to us all when you get a chance. Long car rides, at work, whatever the case may be, pop it on, enjoy it, have fun. Um, in the future, hopefully we can kind of upgrade our technical ability to get it to where we can do shows live, so we can have people ask questions and all that fun stuff. Or heck, you can even throw in questions, right? We got the email, we got Twitter, we got YouTube, right? Send us comments, send us messages about questions you have or things you'd like for us to talk about or whatever the case may be. Hopefully, in the future, we can get guest appearances start popping on the show. Maybe we can get a big time um, celebrity to come and do interviews and help kind of gain a little bit more exposure for our podcast and also have a fun time. But so I don't know. We'll see what the future holds, right? But anyways, remember you can find us anywhere podcasts can be heard. Like I said, we're on YouTube as well, and then of course we do have Twitter to go follow us there as well. Um, and I'll take our Twitter activity needs a little bit better. That's me, but. But anyways, we're all there for us to go find the DBAB podcast. But um, here's the last thing I'll kind of get into for tonight, just on my own, and it's kind of my moment to shine because it's kind of like my passion besides some of the other sports. But we're going to talk about some soccer. Sorry, I had to get some high quality A2O. But anywho, in the world of soccer, everything is kind of wrapping down, right? The Premier League season is has been wrapped up. You know, they played their 38 games. Manchester City was uh, league champs. They're by far the best team in England. Had a great season coming back over Arsenal, who had the number one spot for a majority of the season, but were able to end the year on a great note. They have a chance to win the treble, which means that not only they won the league, they have a league cup to play in on Saturday against Manchester United, and then they have the Champions League final uh, as well. So if they win all three of those, they'll win what they call the treble, which is something that does not happen all the time, especially for a team from England. I think the last time a team from England won a treble that was something similar was United back in '98 or '99. So doesn't happen all the time, whatnot. So they are kind of chasing a little bit of history for themselves. So it should be good. Like I said, I think it's the FA Cup final is on Saturday. Uh, Manchester United versus Manchester City, and then in the Champions League final we have uh, Inter Milan versus Manchester City. So that should be hopefully a good game. Hopefully, it's way more entertaining than the Europa final, which was yesterday, and that was Sevilla versus Roma. Uh, didn't watch much of it. Watched some of the highlights. Watched some of the commentary afterwards, and from those guys, they said it was entertaining here and there, and but overall, kind of was lackluster, and the game ended in PKs, and Sevilla was able to come out victorious there to win their seventh Europa uh, League final, which is great for them. And they had made an interesting comment. One of the pundits afterwards was saying that they need to get rid of extra time, which I totally agree with, because those guys are in peak top physical shape, but you know those guys play 90 minutes nonstop. Obviously with halftime and stuff, but then they play another 30 minutes after that, and then decide to go to PKs. A lot of times they go to extra time, and some teams they just play to get to PKs. No longer do they have the rule, the golden rule, which was basically the first team to score wins. They used to have that in extra time. They don't have it no more. Um, but I think it'll be good for the game if they kind of got rid of extra time because it does bring more wear and tear onto teams and the players and stuff like that. So, and another kind of thing was that if they can't separate themselves and all that kind of stuff in 90 minutes, why give them 30 more? Um, just them to go slosh it out and have it be really not good football or soccer, excuse me, right? And then go to PK. So it'll be interesting to see for that. In Spain, Barcelona won the league. Ugh, Real Madrid were absolutely terrible in the league. That's my team. Um, they also got knocked out in the semis of the Champions League against City, who were awesome. But the Spanish league for a while used to be kind of a dominant, two club team that would dominate it. Barcelona, Real Madrid would go back and forth and all this kind of stuff. But it was, it was all right. If you're a soccer fan, there were some other good things in there. Real Sociedad was able to get in there to qualify for the Champions League, and of course, Atletico Madrid was in there as well. They're always kind of been a thorn in the side since Diego Simeone has been there, right? So that's good stuff there. Drama in Germany, right? It came down to the last match day. Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, right? All Borussia Dortmund had to do, they came into the last match day up. All they had to do was win, and they would have won the title, right? All they had to do was win. And unfortunately for them, they drew 2-2. And then Bayern won 2-1 at the end of their game. And so Bayern, they technically were tied on points, but Bayern Munich had a greater goal differential. So that was the tiebreaker, the first tiebreaker. So Bayern Munich were able to capture the league title for like the 11th year in a row or 10th year in a row or something like that. So they're absolutely dominating their league, something like that. So, heartbreak for Dortmund. It was tough. I watched it. It was tough to watch, like I said, because all they had to do was win. They were playing against a team that was in a rut, had given up multiple goals the last couple of games coming in, and this, I don't know, Dortmund just weren't themselves because they were on a little bit of a run too, banging in some goals here and there, 3, 4, 5 goals a game the last couple, and then just kind of laid an egg. right? I don't know if the pressure got to them or what, but they didn't perform. They didn't do what was needed for them to be able to secure silverware, and their great rivals were able to come in and beat them to it and take silverware and kind of rub it in their face. So, heartbreak for Dormant, but at the same time, like you had it and they kind of just let it slip. So that was kind of heartbreaking there. In France, um, Paris Saint-Germain won the league again. Um, the French league is not as entertaining as the English league or the Spanish league or even the German league. Ever since PSG kind of got their Middle Eastern owners and have been splashing the cash, they kind of have been able to separate themselves from the pack in the French league. Uh, they do kind of sometimes you know, don't have that as their main focus like they used to. They're still kind of chasing Champions League glory, which has eluded them as well. Even though they've had some great players, Mbappe, Messi, and just to name a few, but haven't been able to win the holy grail, if you will, of club football in Europe. Winning the Champions League to kind of compare it for American listeners who aren't really big into soccer. The Champions League would be kind of almost like their Super Bowl, their NBA Finals, their their World Series, right? Because it's the best of all the clubs in Europe going at it on a yearly basis. Obviously winning your league is good too, right? That would probably be like winning your conference before the postseason, or whatnot, or maybe like it'd be like maybe winning the Eastern Conference and or Western Conference and excuse me in basketball, or the AL East or the NL East, or the NFC or AFC, that that kind of that conference championship game. That would be kind of the equivalent of winning your league title, in a way. But the Champions League does kind of act as the holy grail, and teams that participate make a boatload of money in the Champions League and whatnot. So it is obviously something that a lot of teams fight to get into, and once they're there, they try to make it as far as they can, because financially they make a lot of money, and um, of the prestige of the competition as well. So it's interesting. Um, and then looking at some other things here, just real quick. I don't know, like it's since most leagues are wrapping up, they're getting into the summer, so players are going to be going on break. There's no major tournament this summer. Next summer will be the Euro Championship, I believe, because that's kind of like the World Cup is every 4 years, as is the European Championship, which is obviously all the European countries, national teams compete against each other in a tournament. Um, that's every 4 years, but they're kind of like structured to where it's like every 2 years is the major competition going on. So this summer, there's nothing too important. There might be some qualification games and all that kind of stuff going on, and United Nations or whatever they call that silliness, whatever they got going on or whatnot. So, a lot of players now, if their season's done, they're on holiday, right? And also, what's about to start firing up is the transfer window. So this is for again American listeners. The transfer window is like it's like free agency here in the states, right? And the interesting thing about world football compared to the United States is that yes, these players have contracts, but in these contracts, they have things called release clauses or something like that. Um, or you can just, even if a guy has a contract with the team, you can still bid for him, and that team, if they want to or not, they can accept it. There's no, compared to you here in the United States, you can't necessarily go. It's not like the Heat can go LeBron and be like, start speaking to the Lakers and say like, "Hey, we want to buy LeBron from you, and what is it going to take?" And oh, it doesn't necessarily work out. There's no trades or anything like that. Um, so it's kind of interesting to watch and to see all the rumors and to see what happens or not. Of course, I like to follow it. I always follow it. There's two major transfer windows. There's one in the summer. There's one in the winter, kind of like at the halfway point for all the leagues. And there's a lot of money that gets spent. There are a lot of money that gets spent overall and gets spent on players. Those fees have nothing but have climbed have been astronomical for some players. Sometimes it's ridiculous, but it's kind of the inflation of the sport, and all that kind of stuff. And teams, it's just sometimes it's silly. 10, 15 years ago, a certain quality player could go for 10, 15 million pounds. Uh, and nowadays they're going for 30 or 40. You know what I mean? So just the inflation rate is just crazy. Um, the top notch players, they're going for 80 million plus, right? And that's a lot of money. Um, but what some teams are doing nowadays is, they're making their contracts 6, 7 years, whatever the case may be, to kind of spread that out, and it's not just one lump sum that they're getting at the front. So, like, I think sometimes for some people it's misleading when they see it. Like, for example, like, like Cristiano Ronaldo got signed for 100 million pounds, right? Uh, it's not, you know, Team A is not going to pay 100 million right off the bat. They kind of do it in installment payments, if you will. So uh, it's kind of like similar to Americans, sports when an NFL player signs a deal and it's 5 years, $100 million, right? It's kind of their contract is kind of broken down to where they get paid a certain amount each year. There might be some guaranteed money that they get off the bat, but it's a little bit different when these clubs are paying fees or whatnot, and of course, just keeping up with it afterwards. And of course, they can put clauses in there, so if they play a certain amount of games or have a certain amount of stats, this and that, or blah 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 blah, they, more money could be thrown into the deal. Because sometimes you'll see something where like Real Madrid signs this guy from I don't know, Newcastle, 65 millions plus add-ons, and those add-ons are those clauses. So at the end of the deal, if that player performs um, everything that's in his contract, like the total worth of the deal could be 80 million, right? So that's just how it is, and it's just as a soccer fan, it's fun and interesting to see and go through and see who moves and whatnot. Because if if we focus back in the Premier League, right? Manchester City, for the most part, they go out and get whoever they want now, because they got money like that from their owners who are also from the Middle East, right? So they got bukus of money and literally have spent billions to build their squad. They got one of the best managers, aka coach in the world, Pep Guardiola, right? So they're rolling. Um, and a lot of teams in the Premier League, it's probably the best league in the world based on star powers and stuff like that. But they also have the biggest contracts, with media contracts like television rights and stuff like that. So they get bukus of money. Teams get bukus of money. Just to kind of illustrate that, um, the championship, which is right underneath the Premier League, because around the rest of the world they have a system of promotion and relegation within their leagues. It's not like what we have here, stuff like that. So teams, every year are fighting to get promoted, and there's teams that are fighting not to be relegated because at the end of the day, the one thing that they don't want to happen or they do want to happen, however you want to look at it, is it's all about the money, right? It's all, show me the money, right? Um, because last Saturday they had so in the championship, let me back up a little bit. So in the championship, the top three teams get promoted. In the Premier League, the bottom three teams get relegated. Well, in the championship, top two automatically get promoted, right? So if you win the championship, automatic promoted. If you come in second, automatically promoted. Well, third through sixth, they enter a playoff, right, for promotion. So those four teams will battle it out, and then of course they'll have like their little mini. That final third spot will be like a little kind of playoff championship, if you will, and then whoever wins that, they're that third team that goes up. But literally, it's like this year that game, it was Luton versus Coventry City, uh, and what was riding on that game was from a financial aspect was like 150 million pounds, 200 million pounds, um, just to going into Premier League because of the Premier League money from their media right deals and stuff like that. So that's huge for clubs, especially those small clubs that come in and on sometimes they need it. You know what I mean? Because they have to be able to compete in the Premier League. It's just a different level compared to obviously the Championship or the League One or anything like that. And if those teams want to stay in the Premier League and keep earning all that top dollar and playing against the best players in the world and playing at some of the best venues and having their games viewed all over the world because it's the Premier League, then they're going to spend money on players. They're going to fight, scratch, and claw to stay in the Premier League. Uh, and then at the end of the Premier League, if you're one of those three teams at the bottom, if you're not automatically relegated by a certain point because of your how many points you have gathered, you are fighting and scratching and clawing for every single thing, so you don't get relegated because they get parachute money basically to kind of help them adjust to being sent down to the championship. But you're thinking about you're making you're working at a job that pays you 100K, and then if you don't do your job and you get demoted, you go from that to making 50K. That changes everything for you, your lifestyle and stuff like that. So those teams are like I said, they're fighting, they're battling, they're scratching and clawing for everything because it's financially it hits them. And a lot of times teams, what they do is in the contract of these players, if they get relegated, a lot of times they'll have their wages slashed by 50%, and whatnot. So it does kind of motivate these guys not to get relegated, and kind of there is a ding to them, and it helps the club out somewhat financially, so they're not paying a Premier League wage bill for a team that's in the championship because it's just financially they're not going to be able to keep up with it, right? Uh, just when looking at the money, it just doesn't work out for them unless they can bounce back the next year and get back in the Premier League. But a lot of times when teams get relegated, their best players leave, right? They want to play in the Premier League still. They don't want to go play in the league below. They want to keep being paid the same amount or thereabouts. They don't want to take a 50% pay cut. So there's a lot of change that happens, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how all that works out over the summer and whatnot. But anywho, that's kind of a wrap up of my soccer talk, right? I don't get to do it a lot because I know the other four, they're not really big soccer heads like I am, and usually we're by this point we're roasting each other. Um, we got some sports trivia going on, which I missed this week. That's a lot of fun. We started doing that. Um, but I appreciate you all. I appreciate all the listeners coming in and hear me talk tonight. Reminder, right? Game one tonight, NBA Finals. Hopefully the Heat can pull it out in game one and stun them. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle the Joker and his crew, right? Stanley Cup starting off tomorrow, Saturday, somewhere around there. Baseball's in full swing. MLB, all that kind of stuff. New rule changes have sped up the games, it's made it nice. It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of that season plays out and whatnot as we head into the summer. Uh, you know, for us coaches personally, Jack, myself, Cleet, Cobbs, we all about to start entering into our summer strength and conditioning, which is exciting to get those kids ready for August when football comes back. But again, it's a DBAB podcast. It's your boy Kirton. Thank you for tuning in and listening to me for about 45 minutes, give or take, 40-ish minutes, whatever it is. Right? I appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I hope I brought the juice. Right? Sometimes when I get talking, I start talking. Right? That's just me. Right? Just talking about sports, the thing I love. If I could, I'd be here all night talking. If I had a little bit better scripted and whatnot, but I'm gonna go get ready for game one of the NBA Finals um, with your boy. But without further ado, you know what it is. The DBAB podcast signing out.